everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on the final set of the anime of Kuroko's Basketball. Episodes 23, 24, 25, and we're going to be watching the episode 25.5 special, so we're doing a 4-episode reaction tonight, y'all. It's technically Mother's Day as I'm recording this, so I dressed up for this for Mother's Day, and I was like, this kind of works, because it's got like the blue flowers for Kuroko, and then the red flowers, you could think of them as for Kagami or for Akashi, the blue could be for Amine. You can do lots of things with this, but it just felt fitting, and I don't know what to think, because on the one hand, I feel a lot more hopeful for Seirine after the last episode set, but at the same time, I'm like, they have 20 points to make up for. Akashi's gone in the zone. How are they going to do this? The only thing I can think of is if Akashi, because he's now like abandoned his team to get in the zone, if that's going to be his downfall, if his Achilles heel of not being able to work with others is going to be what is his Achilles heel, technically. So, but I'm curious about that. Yeah, but we've got 3 episodes and an OVA to look at for this week, but I'm not sad. We still got the movie. I told everybody on Discord that I'm a completionist. I want to look at everything I can for a series while I'm in the zone. Literally in the zone. And so Truck and Anime Annie have been like pulling overtime along with Solaris to try and get things ready for me, and they've got audio dramas, I've got the manga to react to, we've got the movie, we have specials, we have songs, we have light novels, I've got a big shipping video eventually to make. I've got so much Kuroko's content, it's going to fill up all summer. So we're not going anywhere with Kuroko's for a while. We've got lots to go through, but it will be nice after this week to have the anime done. And then in a few weeks, we'll have the movie done, and I can focus on like the light novels, the manga, the audio dramas, all of the extra stuff that are supplementing our love of Kuroko's Basketball, and some of which have, probably never been translated into English before. So that'll be really exciting that Truck and Anime Annie and Solaris have been putting in work to like get stuff to us that have probably never been translated into English. That's exciting. Groundbreaking, you might say. But yeah, so I will say this first and foremost. We talked about this in the Discord, and everybody in the Discord was saying that after this episode set, the Akashi floodgates can kind of open, but I'm going to put a giant asterisk on this because I want to make sure I watch the movie before I really answer anybody's novels about Akashi, because I feel like I need to see the movie. The movie is an animated part of the canon. I feel like I need to see it. Also, I don't want any manga spoilers because I'm going to be reacting to the manga. So, if part of your comments rely upon me seeing the manga, you might just hold off on that. Just keep it in the Google Doc. Keep it saved on your computer. Keep it in the wings. But I don't want any manga or movie spoilers for the discussion with this set of episodes because I want to be able to enjoy those when I get to them. So, with that being said, I do have some things to talk about before we start. Anime Annie did this thing of animals may bite with Hanamiya and like the leash and everything. Would Hanamiya be into that with Imayoshi? Probably. Imayoshi would be into it. I don't know if Hanamiya does not seem like a submissive type, but Imayoshi seems the type like, yeah, let's do this. So who would win out in that scenario? I don't know. And then there was little tiny chunks from the guidebook that was, Anime Annie and them are translating the character Bible, the guidebook. There's so much happening with Kuroko's. I can't keep track of all the content. But apparently, it came out that if Midorima doesn't have his lucky item, he is in constant life-threatening situations until he secures it. And we were joking in the Discord, we're like, oh, it's not just Midorima being extra and diva-ish with his lucky items. His well-being is in danger if he doesn't have them. And I was like, that adds so much more layers to his character being like, no, Midorima just doesn't want to die, basically. Poor Midorima. I felt so bad for him. But speaking of the guidebook and everything, Truck noted that in the guidebook, Kagatora is noted as being loyal to his type of woman that is his wife. I was like, oh. So that whole thing in the last episode set where I was like, oh, he's flirting with Yosin's coach. Apparently not. He's just being obnoxious and that he's only interested in his wife, which good for him for being loyal. I love that. But I also love that he's just really obnoxious and Yosin's coach is like, oh my God, stop. It's great. I kind of love that. Sichi45 talked about the uncrowned kings being named after plants. And I remember Tepe was wood, but I remember the other ones I couldn't be told because they were spoilers for this season. But Sichi says that Tepe means tree or wood. Hanamiya means flower, which is the irony of all ironies. He's like trash king, but his name means flower. Mabuchi means a fruit or a seed. You can take that to reference whatever you want. Hayama means leaf, which makes me think of like Naruto and him zapping around. And then Nabuya means root, and I think of Groot for Nabuya. So I thought those were all very fitting, but interesting. And then Anime Annie talked about how when Kuroko tells Akashi that he finally figured out his way of basketball and he found the answer to his question, Anime Annie was like, he couldn't shout it from the rooftop, but he could tell it to Akashi there. And I was like, oh, that's so true. I love that. And then Kuroko in that moment is in the light and Akashi is in the shadows. Whatever that means. So I'm really excited, y'all. We've got so much ground to cover. I cannot tell you how excited I am. Just a real quick shout out to Anime Annie, to Truck, to everyone on Patreon for supporting. I'm probably gonna be thanking you all a lot this summer because having to buy the manga and looking in and getting in those volumes to react, Patreon helps support me buying those, so I'm very, very appreciative. I'm also appreciative to the people on the philanthropy tier who help me pay for Streamable and other host sites that I use, so thank you all so much. But special shout out to Edgar, to Dana, to Anime Annie, to Nameless Monster, to Tyrone, to Kinney, to Arjo, to Shimoyama, to Be Happy, to Translucent Men, Eric Sunspots, and Alex Cornejo. Y'all are awesome, and I wouldn't be able to enjoy all of the Kuroko content without you all supporting me. So thank you and all of my love. And thanks to Anime Annie and Truck for doing so much translation. Y'all are going to get lots of thanks to me over this summer because y'all are doing the Lord's work. So the only thing I have to remember at this point is that I need to make sure I watch the OVA after the season finale. Crunchyroll, what are we doing? Why are you having it before the season finale? I don't know. But y'all, let's not waste any time. Let's dive into this. We're going to start Kuroko's Basketball, episodes 73, 74, and 75, and 75.5. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's jam. Oh my God. Wow, that was 4 amazing episodes. I haven't been that on edge about the ending of a game in a long ass time. That was a long coming. Those first 2 episodes, 73 and 74, I was like, oh my God, like the tension, y'all. The tension was just absolutely incredible. And then we get to like wind down in episode 75, and then I love that OVA. It was so cute. It was so cute. My dogs have been very patient, and I'm like, okay, fine, I will play with y'all now. But you may be wondering what this giant whiteboard coon is doing back here. This is my Akashi evaluation. And how I'm going to grade Akashi based on the end of this series, because I know you Akashi stans have your novels ready to go. But I was very heated during that first couple of episodes because I think Akashi gets off way easy. I think he gets off so easy in this set. I was like, really? Okay. So you're going to have to hear me out, or you can fast forward this part of the clip. But I'm going to take your novels into account. So I hope y'all are ready because I have counters and I'm going to go through this wall here of text as we go through this. But yeah, episode 23 through 25. I guess we might as well go through. I think I'm going to save this until post episode 74. So I'm going to save this for episode 75, right? I'm going to save it for, we're going to talk about episodes 73 and 74, 23 and 24 first. Akashi continuing his assault on Seirine. Kagami is not sure how he can face him. I didn't know how they were going to face him. And Akashi just being like, he was really rude and mean at the first part of episode 73. He was like, I don't need you guys. I don't need you. And at one point, he said to them, he's like, well, I just need you on defense to watch for threes. At least you can handle that. I was like, Bitch, that's so rude. Like, they're your teammates. Come on. Like, I get that your whole zone thing is abandoning people, but that was uncalled for. I was like, I don't know. And I was getting really worked up in the episode because I'm like, if I'd been here's the thing about Akashi. As a coach myself, if I'd had a person on our team act like Akashi, they would be having a stern talking to in my office. I'd be like, look, you can't be like this. You can't be the captain and be like this. That's not how teams work. I'm sorry. I don't care if you win every tournament. That's not how this goes. And I think that's really the big problem with Rakuten and Teiko in general, is that none of them had the mentality of ethics when it came to telling Akashi what to do. Because the coach on Rakuten was just like, I don't know, do whatever you want. Teiko's like, just win. There was never at any level of the administration a coach, other than Shirogane, but he didn't ever, that was before Akashi kind of like had his split personality. We'll talk about that. But at no point, I mean, like, in reality, in real life, I'm sorry, but a coach would be like, you can't act like this. I don't care if you're the greatest player on the bench. You need to sit down and get your ego in check. I don't think realistically any coach, at least on the team that I coach on, there is not we've had divas on the team, and those divas get shut down real quick, being like, you're going to be a team player or you're not going to be on the team. Like, it kind of felt like I wanted to be like, you talked to Akashi, and told him to get off the team because he wasn't being good for the team. Well, you're not being good for the team. So that seems a bit hypocritical, doesn't it? And granted, I will give Haizaki this. He was being violent, so he should have cut that out real quick and gotten off for that reason. But then him like attacking Kagami, like that's not even on the team. Little bit of hypocrite right there. I'm just saying. I was just getting frustrated in episode 23 because as a coach, there is no way that attitude would fly. I'd have like shut that shit down real quick, being like, you need to sit down and calm the frick down before. I don't care if we're ahead or not. And they were ahead by that point, so I'm like, they're ahead enough. You need to calm down. But anyway. So let me see here. The figure in front of Kagami's door. In front of the door is Kuroko. Like, it all makes sense now. It's been Kuroko the whole time, right? It was you. It was Kuroko the whole time. And that's why Aomine could never open the door, because he always wanted to be. What's funny is I've been saying throughout the reactions that Aomine's worst enemy is himself. The only one who can beat him is him. And he's been beating himself the whole time because he hasn't been able to realize you needed Kuroko and teamwork the whole time to unlock that door. And he just never did it. So I love that all comes full circle. That reveal that it was Kuroko standing in front of the door was really cool. I liked that a lot. That's why Aomine couldn't open it. He wasn't willing to work with others. Kuroko asks Kagami, he says he needs to give up on trying to win alone, which is the polar opposite of Akashi, right? He needs to give up on trying to win alone and rely upon others, including him. He's like, I know I said I was depending on you, but you don't have to go alone in this. You can count on me if you want to, which is really cute. I like that he's there for him. They're a team. And Kuroko getting behind Kagami and just the trust those two have in each other is so wonderful. I love that so much. I'm like, yes, please. It's just the fact that trust all comes full circle. I'll be honest, there were times in this series I was starting to doubt it, because in the very first couple of episodes, I remember talking about in season 1, talking about Kuroko and Kagami's dynamic and being like, oh, they're developing this trust. And I remember somebody in the comments, I can't remember if it was Patreon or YouTube, were like, well, we'll see how that pans out. And I was like, and I don't know if it was misleading or they were trying to throw me off, but I was just like, well, and my whole brain this entire time has made me think there would come a time when Kuroko and Kagami would like have an argument or disagree with one another. And that never happened in the series. So I was like, y'all trying to play tricks on me. I see how it is. But I love that he trusts Kagami. And I said back whenever Akashi was like knocking people down, I'm like, just don't look at Akashi. And then finally, Kuroko doesn't look at Akashi. He looks at Kagami, which that trust there. Wow, I love Midorima calls it out. And so Akashi with his OP future sight, I was like, OP future sight. I think anytime a character has like those OP abilities and it's like antagonistic, I'm like, I just want them to get beat, right? Which luckily that happens. But whatever that OP power is, I love that Akashi is stunned that someone didn't look at him. It's like, no, eyes are not always on you, sir. And Kagami trusting in Kuroko and that unlocking the door. And then Akashi's ego getting shattered. My thing was it was one alley-oop, like one basket sent him into a spiral, which shows exactly how fragile his ego was. And I do really love that moment because it's like, oh, it explains so much, that so much of the pretentiousness, of the bullying, of the mean-spirited attitude, it's all his own insecurity and his own fragile ego that is so delicate. It's just on a thread. And I'm like, and usually, you know, most of the time they say that people who are bullies have their own insecurities and they're just projecting that insecurity on others. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it excusable. But it explains why he is the way that he is, right? It explains what that is. And then I was kind of getting mad at him because he was instantly defeated. And I was like, Akashi, you talked up such a game about how important it was to be a coach. And then you can't be a captain in that moment because your own ego gets deflated. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, it was shattered in that moment. He's just been pretending to be a captain the whole time. I think one of my big problems with Akashi in that regard is that he never communicates anything. Like, Kagami is such a prime example of, if you aren't happy with something or you're uncomfortable about something or you have worries, you communicate that with your coach, with your captain, with the people around you, and you work to find a solution to the problem rather than just burrowing inward. And just, Akashi is like a cautionary tale of, if you have insecurities and self-doubt, it's the classic inner saboteur, right? He had an inner saboteur, and he was just destroying himself and trying to overcompensate for all of his anxieties and fears. But does that excuse him from everything? Does it? I'm going to question that. But because he just completely gets defeated, and, you know, Seirin's catching up and they're considering subbing him out. I do like that Mayuzumi, of all people, Mayuzumi was the one to step up and be like, no! Mayuzumi had a Himuro moment where Murasakibara was like, I just don't want to play anymore. And it felt like Akashi had given up too. Like, instantly. Like, Akashi gave up, like, the moment one bad thing happened. And I was like, dude. And Mayuzumi's like, no, we all had to work through our mistakes. Hayama, you were about to get onto Hayama if he hadn't called out his mistake. I'm like, you think you're just going to get off the hook? No. He's like, that's not how this is going to work. You're going to keep playing because we got this far. You're not just going to give up and be a sad sack. That's not how this works. I love that Mayuzumi was like, who are you? And then we get the flashback. So at this point, I've got so many notes, but at this point, I'm going to go over here to this board. So I have pre-episode 74 Akashi, the things that we know he has done, right? He told teammates when they could and could not play, and ordered them around even when they were no longer on the team. And the team, granted, respected his things, and they did agree to his wishes, whatever. He did attack Kagami with scissors. I'm not letting that go. There is no excuse for that. That guy did not deserve to be, like, nearly swiped in the head with scissors. He verbally bullied by telling Kuroko that he had to play. Somebody was trying to argue about Kuroko and the whole thing with Ogiwara, right? And saying that Kuroko had never tried to, like, tell the team what they were doing was wrong. I will disagree with that. I think Kuroko tried several times to tell the team that what they were doing wasn't cool. And the team either ignored him, or going back to that moment in the gym when Akashi was like, well, if you don't like the way Teiko and my team plays it, then quit. What was he going to do? Akashi just told him to quit. If he was going to backtalk or try to express his opinion, he was going to have to quit. So he didn't, right? And then the whole thing with Ogiwara was that he tried to frame it as it being Kuroko's fault that they ended up doing those mind games with Ogiwara and his team, and saying that it was Kuroko's fault when it was not. And I don't care about his fragile ego or insecurities. There is no reason why he couldn't have told the team that the game they were playing against Ogiwara's team was too far, it was too manipulative, it was too mean-spirited, and to try something else. There is no reason why he couldn't have done that. So I'm glad Ogiwara shows back up. We'll talk about that. But there's that. He actively encouraged a toxic environment by doing individual play instead of teamwork. And this whole time, Akashi didn't communicate any of these things. And I guess it is, again, a cautionary tale that if you're going through these anxieties, you should tell someone. Because otherwise, the toxicity you create in yourself will start to bleed out and affect others. And I really think that to give Akashi a fair shake, I think that's what was happening. He has created such toxicity within himself that it was starting to bleed out and affect others. Doesn't make it excusable, doesn't make it right, but it explains why that was going on. And it's like you needed to communicate with people. Akashi needed a Kagami to be like, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Talk to us. And he needed that outlet, right? Which, to give him credit, he didn't seem to have. But he had his own struggles with the team. He ignored. My thing is, there were others on the team too that were struggling. And rather than take the moment to realize, oh, these people are like me, they have a struggle, maybe I should talk to them about it and we can kind of like, as a team, hash things out. No, instead he just encouraged toxic traits that worsen those situations. And I'm specifically thinking about Murasakibara and Aomine. They're kind of monsters of his own making, right? Aomine, that situation was just furthered by the toxicity created. Now, again, I've said over and over again, the administration and the coaches, they are by far to blame the most. But I'm not going to sit here and give Akashi, the show gives Akashi like a free shake at the end, being like, well, I'm glad you've changed. I ain't going to do that. I'm going to hold him accountable. Keep it at 100, right? So, the alternate personality, that part kind of upsets me too, because it ends up being like a moot point. He just confronts himself at the very end of the episode. He confronts himself, right? Where he talks about how we're going to get to the whole episode 74, that whole thing there. But at the very end, he talks about this, desiring only victory and losing track of what it takes to become stronger, right? He's afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep up. Okay, so that's getting into this whole deal here. But yeah, the alternate personality was never an alternate personality. It was just him hiding his own weakness and calling it two Akashis. I'm like, it was never two Akashis. It was always just one. They try to say in the episode, they try to do the whole severing, but no, it's not really it. And again, like I said, I don't like that trope of giving an actual legit disorder a villainous characteristic, which is what this series does. They give it a villainous characteristic, but it's not even multiple personality. The pretentious attitude, which is just a front for his own insecurities. Manipulating the team and encouraging lack of teamwork, which he does up until the end of episode 73. The whole declaring it being absolute, being a crutch for his own fragility and insecurities. A few episodes ago, he was calling Mizumi basically a tool, or at least that's what they were describing it as. And then the whole zone thing where he abandons everybody. So that was all the stuff before end of episode 73, going into episode 74. So then we have the setup. And because you all were trying to spoil me this entire time on YouTube and trying to explain things, I kind of saw this coming. I didn't see the mom dying coming, but I'm not surprised. And so the whole alley-oop sends him into a spiral crash, talking to the teammates about not needing them. Again, I feel like after episode 73 and his backstory, the series wants to gloss over all the things he did leading up to it. And I'm like, I don't think we can excuse all of that. But to give Akashi credit, I do like the idea of the mom being the anchor that got him into basketball. It was giving me very Tsurune vibes. Like I was seeing in Tsurune, the main character's mom gets him into archery. And it's a big deal. And spoilers for Tsurune, ignore the next 30 seconds. The main character's mom dies in that series. And he's left with wanting to carry on her love of archery, much like Akashi wants to carry on the love of basketball. Now, before getting back into Kuroko's, we'll say that the main character in Tsurune's dad is very supportive and all about it. So there is a huge difference there. It's not like Kim and Shu, like I said earlier. There is a huge difference between Minato and Akashi. But end of Tsurune spoilers. The thing about Akashi is I totally love that he does want to keep his mom's spirit alive by playing basketball. I love that. Don't get me wrong. Love it. Think that's a great motivation. I love that side of Akashi being revealed. That was wonderful. Then you have the dad saying that he can only keep playing if they keep winning. And here's my problem with that. I do think, to Akashi's credit, that explains a lot of why he pushes so hard to win. I do think that is a thing, right? I think that Teiko doesn't help matters, and neither does Rakuten, because they have this big thing about winning. And we see from Akashi's past, as many of you alluded to, that he's always been this perfect child that had to be, successful. But some of you said, and again, I don't want manga spoilers, some of you said he has siblings, so I'm like, what's the big deal? Is Akashi the oldest or not? Like, the siblings aren't mentioned in the anime at all, so it makes it seem like he has all this pressure. But then in the manga, he has siblings, so why does he have all this pressure? He has siblings. They can do just as much as he can. Let one of them take over the company if Akashi's not living up to your standards. I'm thinking of Ouran High School Host Club. There are others in the family that can take over the business. I'm just saying. But again, that's the manga. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, because I'm going to react to the manga. But here's my thing with the dad and that whole business there, because I did feel bad for Akashi with the dad saying he had to keep playing basketball. He had to keep winning to play basketball. That makes a lot of sense. It's a driving factor. I will give credit where credit is due. I felt bad for Akashi for that fact. However, after the fact, after the team loses, what happens? Does the show show us Akashi facing his dad and the repercussions of him losing once? Did anything happen? Nope. Nothing happened. It felt very much like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you've ever watched that movie, it's one of my favorite movies in the world. But there is a big flaw in it, in that Cameron, the main character, has this, he's put on a pedestal like Akashi the entire film. Like, he's like, my dad expects me to be perfect. He expects everything. He loves this car more than myself, more than life itself, whatever. And the car ends up getting wrecked. And this whole time you're thinking, oh my God, this car that we've had to keep in pristine shape the whole movie, it's wrecked. So now Cameron's life is over. Much like oh, if Akashi loses, he's not going to get to play basketball anymore. Oh no. But then what happens? In Ferris Bueller, he just goes and talks to his dad and everything's fine. In here, he's still playing basketball. So what was the point? If the whole main thing was that if you lose once, you can't play basketball anymore, then when they lost that game, there should have been a confrontation between Akashi and his father when they talked it out, and something should have happened. But nothing happens. He still gets to play basketball. So why did it matter? So that takes away that entire point, because it doesn't matter if they lost, because he's still playing basketball. I was like, but you still get to play at the end. Then what was the point of that whole argument? That doesn't justify your actions then, because there was never a consequence. Was it just hollow words? I really wish there had been a confrontation with the dad at the end of this series, and Akashi to show that vulnerability, to have that big confrontation with his father, to say, no, Dad, I know I lost, but I'm still playing basketball because I love it and it reminds me of my mother. I was waiting for vulnerability. It didn't come. It was just like, oh, this is why I've been the way that I am, so thus it's an excuse. But I'm like, but your dad, you're still playing. You lost and you're still playing, so it didn't matter in the end. You didn't have to be a dick, because it wasn't going to matter at all. So I was so disappointed about that, right? And so they were winning, and then he was afraid of being left behind, and his insecurity led him to be a worse captain. But that point too, I will challenge that, being like, okay, I understand you were afraid and you had insecurities and anxieties about being left behind as a player. That is valid. Totally fine. But look at these other players. Look at these other captains like Kasamatsu and Wakamatsu. They are not the strongest on their team. They've had plays go awry and they've lost, but they're still a good captain and still a good teammate, because they know that their team can still win even if they're not the best player on the team. And I feel like Akashi felt like he had to be the best player on the team or they wouldn't win. And that insecurity is valid, but I'm also like, but there was other ways you could have done it. So I'm not going to excuse that. I'm like, no, not an excuse. And so I just, and then he admits that there's no multiple personality. It's just his own insecurities and how he views himself and part of himself as a weakness. Kuroko driving himself to win. He talks about having guilt. He's like, we have to live with our guilt. I'm like, yes, you do. But he never once, he bows one time to his team in episode 74. He bows one time and tells them sorry for how he acted the last 3 minutes in the game. But we never see him apologize to Kuroko, to the team, to anybody. Like, he brought Kuroko to tears twice. I was just like, he didn't have to apologize to anybody except his team, like the one time. He didn't have to apologize to anybody. He just got off like, all right, well, you had a tragic backstory, so I guess you're excused from everything you've done this entire series. I'm like, what? It was very frustrating. And so he says he lost track of what it takes to become stronger. And yes, he did. And I'm glad Akashi does come back to challenge the inner saboteur and say he's going to be better. So, but here's the thing. Episode 74, I'm sorry, I'm just so frustrated. I was expecting a lot more with Akashi. The way everybody framed it, and maybe that's the problem. Again, the way everybody framed it in the comments and stuff, they're like, oh, you'll find out about Akashi and you'll understand the way that he is. And I'm like, I get why he is the way that he is, but I'm not a stan for what he's done. I don't think that excuses his actions prior, especially knowing that it didn't matter. It didn't make a difference. He could still play basketball even though they lost. I'm like, so that whole thing you were afraid of didn't even matter because you're still playing. Okay. So Akashi is back to his old self and he expects to be left back on the court. It's 90-92. I do like that Akashi has like this cool, calm demeanor now instead of the chill factor. I like the chill in his demeanor. It makes him look like Lucifer, which is kind of funny. And then suddenly, and again, y'all are going to hate me, and at this point I don't care because I'm going to be honest with my opinions. I was very frustrated that he gets back on the court and it's just like, what I was afraid of happened. The moment he realizes, I was sabotaging myself. Darn it. I guess I should be not a dick. As soon as that happens, it's just like, now I'm going to be a nice person and you guys are going to forgive me, right? And it's just like nothing bad happened. I'm like, that's not cool. Because he instantly starts, like, granted, I'm glad he starts praising his team. I'm glad that he starts doing it. That's what you should have been doing the whole time. But it's just like the fact that his teammates, like, he does one bow, one apology, and all is forgiven. I'm like, the inner Taurus in me is like, I can forgive, but I don't forget. I'm like, you got some explaining to do, and you got to work to get that trust back up. And he gets it instantly. It's just like he's rewarded instantly for just giving the bare bone minimum of being nice. Like him just praising, saying, good job. And it's like, that's all it took. And Midorima saying that the whole thing is that Akashi is good at drawing out the potential of his team. I'm like, people around Akashi, kind of like Kuroko, recognize their abilities, whereas Akashi doesn't seem to notice them. And so the thing that got me was, okay, all of Rakusen going in the zone with Akashi, you know what that reminded me of? I realize this is a manga that's been adapted into an anime, and I'm assuming it was released on a chapter-by-chapter basis. I read Bleach for years, so I know this is true. But there comes a time, especially towards like the big climax of a battle or things like that, where in a lot of shonen, the mangaka will suddenly be like, oh, here's this special power you didn't know about. Like in the last second, it's like a cliffhanger for a manga chapter. I imagine that Rakusen all going into the zone was that moment where you're reading the manga being like, are you freaking kidding me? Because it just doesn't. And where'd that ball go? It's way over here, isn't it, Huckleberry? There it is. It doesn't feel earned. That's my problem with it. The whole thing with them all getting in the zone, it feels kind of like an ass pull. Like it doesn't feel earned. The stuff with the true zone, that feels earned because we've spent 3 seasons building up the camaraderie and teamwork of Seirin. So when they finally tap into the zone together and it's beautiful and there's this galaxy animation that's amazing, it feels earned because we've had 3 seasons of them working together to get this point. Akashi saying 2 words of praise and seeming like not as pretentious as he was before, and suddenly they're all connected and happy, that doesn't feel earned. It just felt kind of like the mangaka was like, well, we need something to carry this over into a few more chapters, so here's this one thing. Right? if you'd had Akashi's team lose because he fell apart, and then here's my thing: if you had Akashi's team, if Akashi fell apart after they were able to overcome his zone, and they were able to tap into the true zone in that moment, beat Rakuzan, and then you spent those chapters you could have spent on having Akashi go back to his dad, have a conversation about basketball and his mother and loving the sport and how he was tied to it, and give him some vulnerability and give him some relatable character growth that makes you really connect with his character and just feel that emotion that Akashi is struggling with, insecurity and his fragility, I would have been all about it. I would have been like, yes, that's what I've been wanting out of his character. That's what I've been needing. I've been needing to see that character stripped down, bare bones, and get to his soul. But here, we just don't get that. And it's almost like, well, since he's a nice person now, you should just forgive him, and now he's cool and badass, right? And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to give him that. Not just going to give him that. He wants to have his cake and eat it too, right? And I'm not that type of, not about that. But they all get in the zone. Hanamiya, I will say, Hanamiya is having the time of his life. I laughed out loud when Hanamiya is like, oh, Seirin's going to lose. I was like, get out of here, Hanamiya. And he gets his comeuppance later. But everyone's getting weak. Teppei's knee's acting up. It looks like Nebuya. And I like that Nebuya calls it out where he realizes that Teppei's knee is screaming. I was having like Run with the Wind flashbacks. But he was like, I'm going to keep playing because that's what Teppei would want. Going to play through it. And then just as things, I thought it was Kisei at first that stood up because Kisei's been like the support MVP. And then I thought it was Aomine, which Aomine does end up supporting them, which is great. But it was Ogiwara. And that look between Kuroko and Ogiwara was so freaking good. It was so good. I loved that. I loved it all came back. It was great. Kuroko crying as Ogiwara holds up the basketball saying, I didn't give up. I didn't quit basketball, so don't you quit either. Love it. And then the Generation of Miracles start cheering him on. I love that Kisei is the first one to be like, yeah, do it. Actually, it was Aomine that was the first, being like, well, you guys beat us, so don't lose to them. Like one of those deals. I like Midorima said beat Akashi and beat Rakuzan. Love it. And then Murasaki Bara, he's like, I don't want to do it. I love that Hiro's like, come on, Murasaki Bara. And he's like, no. It was really cute. And then as they like pan around, you see like Alex with number 2 and it's really cute. But then Hanamiya's expression is just like, everyone's cheering them on. Like it was really funny. I loved it a lot. But Kagami realizing that Kuroko's the reason. Kuroko is the one in front of the door, and having the team play in unison is what's going to open up that. And Aomine crying, realizing that that's what it was all along. He was like, that's why I could never open up the door, because I wouldn't work with Kuroko. I wouldn't work with Tetsu. And it was his own fault this whole time that the door wouldn't open. He couldn't become the strongest player he could be because he kept denying Tetsu. And see, I feel like Aomine's character, because a lot of people on the Discord were asking, like, we were worried that you wouldn't like Aomine. And I was like, no, Aomine starts as a dick. He's an ass. In season 1 and going into season 2, yeah, he's a prick. But what you get is, as the series goes on, you get to unfold those layers with Aomine and realize his insecurities and realize what's going on. And he is able to somewhat communicate that, and or others figure it out what's going on and try to help him. And it just, his character is what I wanted Akashi to have. I wanted Akashi by the end of this set to go through that unraveling that Aomine does. And we don't get that. Instead, we just get like a montage of why he is the way that he is, and we're supposed to just roll with that in the final hour and being like, well, that's why he was the way that he was. Now you know, so you can forgive him for everything he's done and love his character. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to. But I do like that we got the musical instruments with Akashi, though. It explains why he plays all the musical instruments, because he was like classically trained. But yeah, so I like that everybody gets pepped up. Kagami realizes that Kuroko has a praise kink, which is fun, which is a lot of fun. I love that. I love Kagami's like, you really like getting praised, don't you? And I'm like, mm-hmm. And I'm sure every fanfic writer was like, yes, we will do things with this now. And then Akashi, again, they try to make his character so cool and badass, and they're like, he's like, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I was like, no. I was like, of course you'd say that. Of course you would, right? And so then we know it was Kuroko all along that was the key to getting stronger, right? Because it wasn't just Kuroko, it was his style of basketball, which is playing basketball as a team. Who would have thought? It was the power of Nakama and the Nakama beam that saved the day, as you would expect, right? So, and Almine realizing he may need teamwork to get stronger. Good, we'll talk about episode 75. But it's 103-98 with 46 seconds left. And Akashi scoring the 2 points saying that they're not going to let Seirin win. And I was like, oh my God, we have 46 seconds left. We're 7 points behind. What are we going to do? When he said that Seirin was too inexperienced to beat Rakuzan, I feel like that was such like a too late thing to say, because yeah, it made sense at the time that Rakuzan has more experience winning. And where is this? I'm trying to find the toy Huckleberry. There it is. And where he said that Seirin had too little experience. I was like, well, that doesn't matter, because experience is some experience. Like, you're just drawing hairs now. But he tries to tell, I do like that Akashi tells his team to keep on defense. I do like that Akashi is not underestimating Seirin. That's good. I like that. There's 40 seconds left. Izuki focus. I was saying this in a couple comments, but what I loved about this last game against Rakuzan is that it kind of did the opposite of what I was expecting. I was expecting the Rakuzan game to just be like a Kagami and Kuroko fest, and for it to be them versus Akashi, and then Teppei would be against one of the Uncrowned Kings, and Hyuga would be against one. But it actually ended up being a game where everyone had to be involved. Like, all the first and second years coming through, like, they were needed. They were important. And I really liked that. I liked that this series gave them things to do. And Izuki was the key in the final hour. It was Izuki that saved the day. I was like, that is so badass and awesome. Where he was like, I just need to be clever and focus. Who are they going to throw the ball to? Teppei's injured. They're going to throw it to Nabuya because they know Teppei can't stop it. And I love that he got that moment to take it. And then it passes over to Hyuga. And that was karma. Mabuchi, the action against Mabuchi was pure karma, because that moment where Mabuchi drew the foul and it was not a foul on Hyuga, that was just, I love that it came full circle, and Hyuga's like, sorry, I gotta draw it. I know what to do. And just goes from there. And Mabuchi, Mabuchi has every right to feel bad, because, yeah, you've got seconds left. He got a 3, and they just need 1 point to tie and 2 points to win. So, of course, he would feel bad. And, again, I'm going to give him a bit of the doubt. I'm glad that Akashi tells him it's okay, just focus on defense. I'm glad he's doing things he should have been doing all along. I'm glad that it feels almost like a Stockholm Syndrome thing. The things Akashi does in episode 75 are things that every other player in the series has been doing since day one. And we're just like, cool, that's a normal thing to do. But I almost feel like Akashi gets praise for being like, oh, well, he overcame his obstacles. And I'm like, to be a normal functioning human being, yes, good for him. I'm just like, it just feels like a have your cake and eat it too moment. And I'm at least glad he's not a psychopath anymore, and he's a decent human being. Good, as he should be. But yeah, he tells him not to be sad or angry. It's okay. They've got to get through this. Hyuga misses. Teppei gets the rebound. And I love that Chihiro realizes, he's like, I should have watched Kuroko. My favorite part of the whole game, though, is when Kuroko takes the shot. Because there's so many things going on at once. Akashi leaping to stop him, and Kuroko using the move that he learned to play against Toho, to play against Yosen, to do that, to play that move. And it's kind of like Kuroko got a have your cake and eat it too moment, where he was like, yeah, this move that you told me I was really stupid for learning, I'm going to use it against you now to win the game. But also, I am a shadow, so I'm actually going to give it to Kagami and let him do it. Like, that was such a here you go move. And I was like, you know what? Good for Kuroko. After everything he's had to put up with this whole series, I'm glad that he shot to Kagami. The alley-oop causes them to win, right? I did find the pseudo Emperor's Eye interesting whenever he was like, the whole thing was he was looking at Kagami instead of Akashi. Again, the whole argument about them once being conceptually brothers in the series, then them both having the Emperor Eye, that would have been a little cliche. So I like that Kuroko wasn't doing a full-on Emperor's Eye. I really thought Kuroko would go in the zone. But he kind of does. I guess he does because the true zone connects them all together, right? Again, the animation, the golden light, the galaxy stuff. So good. I loved it. But yeah, so he does the alley-oop using the move that Akashi chided him for to win while still doing what he does best and be a shadow. That was so good. And so after the game, post episode 74, he's still OP-esque. Akashi is still like has these powers to like perfectly pass to others and bring them. He brings out he kind of becomes Oikawa in that moment. He can bring out the best in people, which I'm like, that is hilarious considering that he brought out the worst in them before. I like that Akashi Umteko brought out the worst in people, but now his true potential is to bring out the best in people like Oikawa. Okay. But he's not as pretentious as he was, so that's good. Glad for that. Bows and apologizes once to the team. Doesn't really apologize to anybody else, but okay. He instantly praises the team and connects them into the zone, which I'm going to call BS on, but whatever. Here's my thing. When he lost, I was really expecting more emotion. Like, he cries, he tears up, he has like the single tear. He doesn't even have the single teardrop. He just has like the tears glistening in his eyes. But he doesn't have like an emotional reaction. And I get why he doesn't, because, that's winning's not everything now. But again, then what was the point of this whole part here about your dad saying you can't play basketball if you're not going to win if that didn't matter in the end? But he doesn't cry at the loss, but realizes that instead he was just glad he got to play basketball and shakes Kuroko's hand. I'm glad he shakes his hand. That's great. And then he congratulates it and says, we'll win next time. I'm like, well, apparently you're not, because your dad said you can't play basketball unless you win, but I guess that wasn't even a thing, so we're fine. And then go from there. And so we'll win. And then Teppei, I like that we had like the post-episode events that happen. But before we get into that, I guess my thing here is that, yeah, I said impact of the loss, father's expectations. We're not gonna tie back to that at all. We're not gonna. My fear is that in a lot of people's essays they're writing about Akashi, they are going to put the mother and the anchor thing, which that makes sense. I am totally in agreement that it makes sense why Akashi likes basketball because it's a tie to his mom. I wish he would tell some of his friends that. Because when Kuroko's like, when Ogiwara said, do you like playing basketball? And Kuroko's like, do you like playing basketball? That was always like a trigger for him. And I get that it was a trigger because his mom died and he has bad memories about it. But I wish he'd talked to people and explained things. And then I have a feeling people are going to be like, well, his dad said he couldn't play unless he kept winning. And I'm like, well, he lost here and he's still playing, so what difference did it make? I just feel like there wasn't the vulnerability that I wanted out of his character by the end of this. And for so many people to tell me that there's a reason he is the way that he is, and that, oh, he's a really badass player and he's really cool, you're gonna love him. I had people on Twitter being like, you're gonna love him by the end of the games, and I was like, okay. So, but yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I think everybody's just glad he's not a psycho anymore. I think everybody's just glad he's not violent and toxic and bullying anymore. And they're like, well, we'll take this as a win. And I'm just like, I'm glad he's not like that anymore, but I wanted there to be more impact from the loss. It almost seemed like he was like, well, I've solved my own problems inwardly, so I can, be a functional adult now. And I'm like, okay. All right. Okay. So anyway, in the post episode, we have Teppei and Alex. Teppei is going to be going off to get surgery, and I like the idea of Alex going with him. I really want to see more of Teppei's adventures with Alex. I think that could be fun. See, here's the thing. Teppei I think, has a strong constitution and is pretty mature and even level-headed. So I think he could handle Alex. I think that would work fine. But Hyuga, his whole "we'll be waiting." I was like, shut up! I just love him and Rico, and then like, come on. I am sad we didn't get any resolution with Hyuga and Rico, what he was going to ask her. Maybe we'll get that in the movie. I don't know. Maybe we'll get that in the manga. I don't know. I was really looking forward to that. I was like, And by the way, if anything with Akashi happens in the manga that is not in the anime, do not tell me. Please do not tell me. I don't want to know. I will find out when we get to it. But, so, yeah. But they're talking about going to get surgery. Hyuga, that moment was so precious. I loved that. Kuroko talking to Ogiwara. I noticed that Kuroko's scarf that he's wearing, like the striped scarf, he wears lots of stripes. So does Chihiro in some of the fan art and official art that I've seen of him. So connecting those two characters together. And Momoi gets the picture of him with his old teammates. I guess that the whole reason Crunchyroll put the OVA before the final episode was because in the OVA, the part where they play the game and get the picture happens. And so they're like, oh, well, in the final episode, they showed him getting that picture. So we need to show how we got to that point. But by showing Akashi being like a normal human being with them, it kind of spoils it. So I'm like, Crunchyroll, that's not really the best reason to put it before the episode, but whatever. And so they decide they're going to play with him next year against Ogiwara. And then Momoi gets in the picture. Kasamatsu. I like Kasamatsu and the guy that likes girls. I like that they're going to the same school. I could relate to Kasamatsu because he got the C on the exam and the other guy got the B that didn't study. There was like an educational psychology class I took in college and I studied my butt off in that class. I studied so hard because it was a hard course. And I remember like the final exam I got a B on, and my friend that was in the class, he didn't study at all, and he got an A, and I was like, how? And he was like, I just guessed on the answers. I was like, ah. So I totally understand where Kasamatsu is coming from. Makes sense. But yeah, so, and then he gets a better score. Kisei and the others, I like that Kasamatsu and them go in to check on Kisei, and they see that he's doing all right with the new coach. The new coach is being like, hey, we got to beat Seirin. They're using Seirin as the standard. I'm really happy about that. Kisei looks like he's doing fine. Takao being like, Midorima, you and I are going to be the only second years. And then Miyagi's younger brother, who is the captain, came up. What I love about that whole deal is that Takao and Midorima are the only second years, other than Miyagi's brother, that have stayed on. I love that the entire team as a whole was like, Takao is too chaotic to be captain. And Midorima, hell no. Midorima does not need to be captain. He will have us all have lucky items. We can't do that. Nope. We're going to have Miyagi's brother, who we've never seen before, be the captain. But he's so fun. He looks very handsome. He looks like he's not like Miyagi at all. Doesn't seem like a Kita type. Just saying. But yeah. And so Murasaki Bara, I will give Murasaki Bara this. He seems like he's softened a little bit by giving the teammates the candy bars. The fact that Murasaki Bara gave food to people willingly is growth. It is a major step of growth, right? So much growth. Speaking of which, I guess if I'm going to rank the Generation Miracles before we go any further, well, I'll wait till we get to the end of this. He's softened up to his teammates. I like that he called the ice like rice cakes. I could so see that the way it was animated. It did kind of look like the little rice cakes all packed together. I like that he visualizes things through food, and Himuro's like, what? Also, Himuro's a really good cook, so him and Murasaki Bara shipping it so hard, y'all. Shipping it so hard. And then Momoi being happy that Almine is coming back to practice. I love that Wakamatsu, who's the captain now, threatens Almine by burning his like porn magazines, and Almine's like, no, I'll go to practice. And then once he's there, he's like, well, I don't want to just watch. Like, it's dorky Almine, and I love it. And saying he won't. And I like that Wakamatsu not only threatens him by burning his magazines, but by saying, you know, Kagame's going to get a lot stronger than you if you're not careful. And Almine is like, fine. I love that Wakamatsu knows that Kagami is like a trigger for Almine. It's great. And then Mayazumi, not fond. So we see him on the rooftop. He's like the 1/3 year that's graduating that we know of. And he makes this statement he's like, well, I wasn't really fond of my team, so I don't really see the need to go to the 3rd year ceremony. And he says, I didn't have great memories from the team, from playing with them. And I was like, yes, you were used. You were not thought of well. You were like mentally like manipulated. And he says, but the last year wasn't bad thanks to you. And I'm like, what? I'm like, Akashi was nice to you for 5 minutes. But suddenly it makes that whole year totally fine. Okay. All right. And then Akashi is all forgiveness, right? And then Kagami is sent to go find Kuroko. I like that he's basically Kuroko's keeper. And then he mentioned something about the birthday, which we find out in the OVA that I've got pulled up here. And then we see the photo of all of them with the Generation Miracles. And I'm glad that the OVA was addressing the birthday. So glad. But before we go any further, I would say if we had to order the Generation Miracles, we have the main 5, obviously. And then we have Momoi that counts Kagami and Kuroko. So we have 8. We have technically 8 Generation of Miracles players. My lucky number. 8, my lucky number. I would say my favorite is still Kagami. Kagami is my fave. I love him. I love that he's communicative. I love that he's supportive. I love that Kagami throughout this entire series, I was expecting him to have this big angsty, pretentious arc. He never does. He's always supportive and a kind-hearted person and stays true to himself. I loved that. I was like, hell yes, Kagami. I love that too. And I love Kuroko. He's my number 2. He is literally player 2. He may be called player 1 in the episode of the OVA, but he is number 2 because I love the growth that Kuroko goes through. You empathize with him. You see his vulnerability. You see his growth as a character. You see him encouraging Kagami. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it so much. From here, it gets a little hard because in the middle, it gets hard, right? I'm very torn, but I would say that Aomine is my number 3. Aomine rose up for me in this final season. I love that Aomine rose to my number 3 because he's, I think, honestly, of all the characters, he's the one that grows the most. Aomine changes the most from start to finish in the series. He has the biggest arc. He is the most, like, you relate to his struggles, to his depression, to him, like, trying to, like, claw his way back up from that, from befriending Kuroko again to, like, reforging those relationships. And then we have the OVA here. It's just, like, things are getting back to a good place. So I love Aomine's character for seeing that vulnerability and seeing him have to work to get better. And it's not something that's the thing. Aomine and Akashi have, like, an opposite reaction where once Aomine has this self-realization, it's not like a switch flips. He's still who he is, and he has to kind of fight and gradually work to be better as the series goes on. Akashi, it's like a damn switch flips where it's like, oh, I realize what I've not been doing right. Now I'm better. It's like, it's not as rewarding as Aomine's journey is, right? And Midorima is definitely my number 4. If Aomine is my number 3, and I'm losing this marker, I'll get this other one back up. If Aomine is my number 3, then Midorima is my number 4. And Midorima and Aomine are really close. I like Midorima for kind of the opposite reason of Aomine. Midorima is pretty consistent the entire series, but he's hilarious, he's quirky, he does have growth. It's just a lot more subtle, but it is there. And by the end of it, he's just a fun player. He's a fun character, and he has a lot of great chemistry with other characters that makes you want to see them interact with one another. Like, especially Kagami and Midorima. I love their interactions. Kuroko and Midorima, they have great interactions. Even Murasaki Bara and Midorima. I just love all their interactions together. I think my number 5 is Kisei. Season 3 made him a number 5. I feel like Kisei's so underrated, and I feel like Kisei's underrated, and I want to see more with him. I'm hoping the movie gives us more. Because I feel like Kisei kind of gets the short end of the stick a lot. He was on the first team in the series that's usually like the weaker team, but then they come back, and he never really gets like a good solid win in the series, which is sad. And then he just, he has the copy ability, but he doesn't quite have his own thing. So I feel like Kisei kind of gets shoved to the wayside a lot. But I love Kisei. I love that he's MVP supporter. He's constantly supportive of the other characters. He's so nice. And even when he doesn't have the best of intentions, he's still such a charismatic and nice person. And I like that. My number 6 is Momoy. I feel like Momoy and Kisei, much like Almine and Midorima are together, Kisei and Momoy are kind of together. I like Momoy a lot. I really felt bad for her in the Teiko flashback, but she grew on me a lot, because in season 1, I didn't care for Momoy. And that's, us being Taurus ladies together. I was still like, I don't know how I feel about her. But she, like Almine, had a wall put up. And then throughout season 2, the wall slowly comes down when you realize, oh, she cares about Almine. Oh, they have this history. Oh, this is why she's doing these things. And that vulnerability comes out, and you see that, and you're like, okay. And I love that Momoy kind of grows on you as the season goes, and you get to see more of her as a person. It's nice. Murray Sakibara is my number 7. Murray Sakibara, I don't dislike Murray Sakibara. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike him. He's just kind of not as three-dimensional as the Generation of Miracle players before him. I feel like we never really get to see Murray Sakibara be totally vulnerable. Like, he has that kind of, like, crying moment at the end of the Yosen game, but Murray Sakibara does not go through or seemingly vocalize the same struggles that the other Generation of Miracles characters have. He's kind of the one we see the least of, and he's still kind of a brat. He's still just kind of weird and quirky in his own way. I don't hate him. He just kind of, I'm like, eh. I like him when he's with Hamuro. When he's with Hamuro, I think it's better because he can play off of Hamuro. And where he gets kind of like grumpy, Hamuro's like, oh, well, what about this? And he's like, I don't know. He kind of like has like an Oscar the Grouch mentality, and Hamuro kind of brings out the better in him. So I don't dislike Murray Sakibara, but he's like down towards the end where I'm like, eh. And then, yeah, I'm sorry. Nope. Akashi's not for me. He's just not my type of character. And I really feel like the show missed an opportunity to really go gung-ho on, like, if you're gonna build up a character to be as villainous as they build up Akashi to being, you kind of have to go one of two ways. You either have to build up his villainous character and let him fall hard, and then afterwards, like, have him redeem himself, have him redeem himself after he falls hard, and then go that way. Or you've got to really build a solid backstory and a solid conclusion to get that redemption. And I don't know if the show does either, because I feel like the show wants it to be like, oh, well, he was this really villainous character, but all along he was just a misunderstood person. And I'm like, yes, but they make him so villainous, though, throughout this series. And I get that they're high school kids. I get that that's the case, right? They're high schoolers. But they really make some of his stuff so melodramatic and so over the top that when they suddenly are like, oh, well, he was just a kid that was insecure. He's fine, really. I'm like, I guess. But so all that stuff in the past, we're just supposed to forget about it? Okay. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. He's not the type of character I would enjoy in a show, and I want to give him a fair shake. I'm glad he's better. I'm glad he's got better, but it just doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel nearly as earned. It would be like if Almine just had one episode, and that's the thing. Almine had multiple, he had 3 OVAs dedicated to his struggles, and a whole backstory in the Teiko flashback dedicated that you really felt the pain he was going through. That montage with Akashi was 5 minutes long, and that was it. That's all we got. And maybe in the manga it's longer. And my plan in the manga, if I can, is to mentally reset myself and say, okay, I'm going to tackle this manga as if I never watched the series before, start fresh, and see if my opinions change. Because when you adapt stuff, you leave things out or you alter it. It typically happens. So I'm going to treat, and I know people have said, all they've said, I've been very good about not being spoiled, but all people have said in the manga is that there's stuff left out of the anime. And I'm like, okay, then when I start the manga, I'm going to start from square one, be fresh, and see if my opinions change. So, but based on the anime, I just felt kind of let down that, oh, that was it? And then we were supposed to instantly be totally fine with him. And I'm like, that's like saying, again, what if Hanamiya suddenly had a sad backstory and his dad died and that's why he was so like he was? Would you all just instantly be like, oh, he's fine, poor him? I don't think you would. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are like, Akashi's hot, so I'm going to forgive him. I'm like, I'm not persuaded. Where he hasn't shown his abs. No, I don't hate Akashi in the end. I can't say that I hate him because I understand why he is the way that he was, but I don't like him. And I feel like when we go through this OVA, there's a few moments that the show's trying to be like, he's a totally fine character. And I'm like, bitch, he tried to stab someone with scissors. Are you sure? Like, you know, I don't forget. No. So let's go through this OVA. All right, let's go through this OVA. I've already talked for an hour. But I do really love that Shirogane, the captain, the coach, is in the hospital. And he gets the photo of all of them and the letter. I wish that we could have seen what the letter said. And I wish we could have gotten more at that scene. I really do. But maybe the manga will show us more. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I wish we could have gotten more with that. And then we see that everybody's like, oh, let's go play with Tetsu. It's on his birthday. I like that Almine, whenever he's like, interested but doesn't want to show it, is just like, I don't know, and like picks his ear. I'm like, shut up, you want to play. I did feel bad for Kagami though in this, right? I did feel bad for Kagami because that was such, and I know Kuroko didn't mean it, but that was kind of mean when Kagami's like, I have this whole party planned out, are you free on the 31st? And Kuroko's like, yeah, and then he gets a phone call, actually no, I'm not free. And it's like, oh, the jealous side of me that wants to like ship Kagakuro so much, wants to like be a little possessive of them, where I'm like, Kuroko, like, that makes it almost seem like you care more about the Generation of Miracles player than you do Kagami. And I know that's not true, but that's just like the little bit of tiny tourist jealousy in me is just like, I felt bad for him. But then again, it's Aquarius. My best friend's an Aquarius, so I'm like, I get it. What I love though is that Kagami's like, that's amazing. Like, he doesn't get mad. Like, Kagami doesn't get jealous or mad. He's just like, oh, well, you should definitely go play. Just, we'll move the party to the evening. I'm like, Kagami, you are a man among men, moving that party for your friends so you can go hang out with his other friends. That's some hardcore best friend moves, right? And he's like, what am I going to do? And that's when he decides to move the party. And so I love that. I love that Kagami's so nice to him. And Kuroko's like, well, thanks. That's really sweet that, you let me go play with my friends and move the party for me. And he's like, I'm typically forgotten 364 days a year. That's so sad. I felt so bad for Kuroko in that moment where he said that, where he's like, normally people forget about me. And I'm like, Kuroko, sweetheart, we will never forget you. So we go to the Maji Burger. I like that originally it seemed like a date between Momoe and Almine, and then Kisei was there. And I like that Almine's kind of flustered by it. He's like, why is he here? Why is the third wheel here? And she's like, he just got off a modeling gig. We're good. And they try to convince Murasaki Bara to go to the game. Almine had a very straightforward, very solid plan, which is to lure him with food. And I like that Momoe's plan is basically the same. I like that he calls him out. I like that Almine calls her out being like, that's my plan, when she's trying to tell him on the phone. Also, I'm assuming these are the dorms at Yosen because there's like a living room area and they have the snacks out there and he's watching a wrestling match while eating snacks. Himuro just happens to be there on his phone. Nothing else to do, Come on. And they have the coffee. I like the little coffee mugs there. It's super cute. And so then, here's the thing. Murasaki Bara is persuaded by the desserts. I love it. Like, Murasaki Bara is snack sexual. He's only here for the food, and Himuro's like, I know a way to a man's heart. And for Murasaki Bara, it's through his stomach. I love it. And then Momoe makes the biggest mistake and says that she'll make it. And that's what gets him to not go. I love it. I love Hamuro's like, well, why don't you go and play street ball? I like that Hamuro, ever since like making up with Kagami, he's like suddenly this nice person that's just really great. Again, he instantly changes, but I would argue Hamuro wasn't mean to anybody else. He was just kind of rude to Kagami, but they made up and apologized to one another, so it's fine. And then I do like Murasaki Bara, he's lazy and he just like scoots the phone close to his face to talk on it. That's so funny. And the whole reason that Akashi and Murasaki Bara show up are because they're arranging a practice game between Rakuzen and Yosen. Of course, and they meet halfway. Just so happens to be in the place so they can go to Kuroko's birthday. Sure. So everybody gets recruited to go to Kuroko's birthday party. Izuki tries to make a pun. Doesn't work. And so I like that we get to see Midorima's house. We get to see that. We get to see Midorima's house. Everything looks very nice and neat. And it's just like a nice fancy home. And then he's like upstairs getting ready. And he's like, a chick keychain's your lucky item. And they're like, who's placing last on January 31st? Why, it's Cancer. And he's like, oh no. What's really funny is that my best friend's birthday is January 30th. So it's the day before Kuroko's. How about that? How about that? And then Midorima, I just love that Midorima's instantly like, Takao, the mushrooms. Boyfriend goals! If anybody's going to help you get them, it's going to be Takao. I love it. I love they all show up. Kisei's outfit's ridiculous. Too many layers. I love Moi, like, hugs Kuroko. I love the scarf that she makes him. That was really sweet. Like, and it was pink. I love it. I love that Kuroko's like, oh, I'll treasure this scarf. That's so cute. And then Takao dropping off Midorima is absolute perfection. I love it. And he goes on his merry way and gives Kuroko the little chick keychain that he found. Awesome. And then Murasaki Bara, like, walking out of the woods like some kind of, like, just madman. He was just lost in the woods. I love that he has this trucker hat on. He's just, like, getting out. I will say, of all of the fashion that everyone's wearing, I like Murasaki Bara's the most. I like the trucker hat. I like the purple. It's very cool. And then Akashi just shows up. You know, everything's totally fine. Again, I guess I get that the whole point is that they forgive Akashi. They are being the better people and forgiving him and just being happy that he's not a crazy person anymore. I'm fine with that. I just feel like Akashi owed them an apology. He owed them a big apology for contributing to the toxicity, and he never gives it. And it's just kind of like, you should apologize, sir. I feel like it's needed, but he never does it. And good for everyone else for being totally fine. But, ugh. And then they play the game. I like that Aomine and Kuroko and Akashi on a team together seems so OP. But then Murasaki Bara, you forget that they actually are really strong. And what I love about this is what Kuroko always wanted. He just wanted them all to play as friends. Like, just play a game of basketball. It didn't matter who won or lost, even though Akashi wins every game. But it didn't matter. And they were just friends. Like, I love that. I love that that's all Kuroko wanted, and it was the best birthday gift he could have gotten, was that he was friends with all these people again, like he wanted to be from the beginning. Like, it made up. And it's so sad because you see what they could have been, and it's like, man, the dynamic that they could have been was so good. Just, ugh. And Midorima being like, I don't intend to lose. I like that little moment between Midorima and Akashi. It's really good. And then, I'm sorry, but like, Aomine does the really cool dunk, and then he fist bumps Kuroko, and it's so sweet. It's like, it's so sweet. I love it so much. It's really good. And then, yeah, they just keep playing this really fun game. And Momoi even plays, right? And then Akashi's like, making plays is more fun with a player like you on the team. I'm like, yes. And then we cut to Hamuro. I'm going to pick up my highlighter here. We cut to Hamuro. And Hamuro has like Sosuke levels of getting lost from Free. Where he's like, to be fair though, laughed out loud at Kagami's directions of, just go here. It's around here. That's such an American thing to do, though, because I know I've gotten directions from people before. They've been like, "Oh, you just turn at the tree at the end of the lane, and at the end of this road, you're gonna see like a tree and a church, and you're gonna turn there." And it's like, Street names, who knows them? Just here's the landmark, go find it, you'll figure your way out. I'm like, of course Kagami would do that. That's great. But Takao and Himuro, like traveling together, that's so cool. I love it. I love it so much. I also want to say, in the other episode 25, I think I skipped around on some things. I really liked whenever Teppei lifted up Riko, like in the end when they were celebrating. That was super cute. And everybody was crying. It was great. And so Takao asks what's going on. And Himuro explains that Kagami's invited him over. And I love that Momoi, she like gets kind of teary-eyed too, because she thinks that this is all I wanted, was just for these guys to play together and be friends and for it to not be toxic. And then Akashi tells her to go play with them. I want to see Momoi play basketball, dang it! I want to see her and Aomine play against each other. Show, how dare you tease and give us nothing in return. How dare you? How dare. But, and see, my thing with it too is that like, he like tells Momoi to go play with them, and she like runs off and she's so super happy and it's really, really cute. Of course she runs to Tetsu's team. And Akashi there, he's like looking all like sincere, being like, I'm such a good person now. I'm like, Ugh! Yes, I'm glad you are a good person now. I'm glad you've completely changed. I'm glad that you got to change and nothing was of consequence for you. I'm like, yeah. That does almost seem kind of like it. Like, he didn't have to, it's like, I wanted him to earn it, damn it. And I feel like he didn't earn it. I feel like he was just given a slap on the wrist and then he got to be like a main character and that was it. Whatever. Done. Done talking about now until I get back to the manga. I'm going to just leave it. But yeah, Teppei Fight number 2. I love the decorations that they make. It's so cute. I love that Hyuga is really good at making like the paper people. It's really sweet. And then Himuro and Takao. Again, Kagami is such a wonderful person. Kagami is just like, come on into my house, other people. I don't care. Like, he's just the nicest person. I do love Takao's like snark where he's like, I've delivered your lost child to you. It's like, it's Himuro. That was wonderful. I loved that so much. It was great. But yeah, so they all come in. I love the image of Himuro in the little cart with Takao like riding along with him. And of course, you know, Himuro's not going to complain. Not one bit. But that was so cute. And then he's like, I brought the stuff to make food. He brought like, what do you call it? He said it was kiritanpo. And then they all put the aprons on. I love they have the red apron and the blue apron, and they're being like best bros, like making the food together. As soon as Himuro started making the food, I was like, Murasaki Bar and the Generation Miracles are going to come because they're not going to turn that down. No way. No way are they turning that down. And then pouring the oil, everything. And then both of them like being like, where's Alex? I like that neither of them are really interested in Alex. They're just like, she's enjoying Japan. Look at her. And then, of course, Akashi was the only one that didn't lose. And so they're like, we'll call it then. And then she gets them to take the photo together. I love she has the pink camera, like the pink Fuji camera. That's so perfect. And I love that Murasaki Bara, he yawns during the photo. Midoriya was like, don't yawn. Like, it's so great. And then Akashi's like, I'm glad we can all be friends. And Kisei tries to do the pose. It's great. And Kuroko's just like, this is the best present ever. Okay. Y'all have said this. Y'all have said it for episodes and episodes and episodes. The only saving grace about Akashi in this entire series is his relationship with Furihara. That's the only thing, because it's like, oh my God. Like, he opens up the door, and not only does he say good evening and open it up, and he's like, he says, Furihara-kun, right? Like, he remembers him! I was like, what the fudge? That's like the only thing. That, and of course he'd have like a pressed pop collar. What a posh trollop. But yeah, Furihara and Kuroko's like, I brought my friends with me to come in. Oh my God, Furihara's great. And then I love it. And then Amine's like, oh, you live in a pretty nice place, huh? What a nice swanky place you got here, Kagami. I was like, a meeting of worlds. I love that Aomine is just like, look at all this. No. And everybody's like, oh, you're all here. And he's like, I'm Rakuzan's Akashi. Excuse the intrusion. It's like, they all know who... I love he's like, we know who you are. I love that. And also Teppei holding Furihata's like collapsed state. I love it. And then Midoriya's like, what are you doing here, Takao? And he's like, I came to see the chaos. I'm like, come on. This is too chaotic. I love it. It's wonderful. And then, oh my god, Furihata being like in Akashi, in Murasaki Barro's arms. It's wonderful. He's like, this is where you've been at? And he's like, yes, we've been making food. And of course, Aomine tries to look for a dirty magazine in Kageme's house, and he doesn't find one. And I'm like, that's because Kagome doesn't like women. And then he's like, there's no dirty magazines here at all. And Kageme's like, get out of here. We're not all like you. And then Midorima telling Murasaki Bara to not eat snacks quickly, like wait till the food is served. Ridiculous. And Himuro's like, you need to go wash your hands too. And Murasaki Bara's like, fine, then I will. And everybody's like, oh my god. And I love that instantly. I like that Mitobe holding up number 2 is freaking adorable. It's great. And then Teppei's like, oh, Murasaki Bara, hi. And he's like, oh, Kyoshi. I love it. It's just so great. But then, yeah, they all pet number 2. And, of course, if you look at the hands... Where'd that toy go? There it is. If you look at the hands petting number 2, Aomine is definitely one of them because he's a dog lover. I love it. It's so cute. And then Akashi's like, well, is there a number 1? And then everybody's like, yes, that would be Kuroko. He's number 1. And Kageme's just like hunched over, like, and quivering in fear. I'm like, Kagome, quit being a diva. You knew number 2 was possibly going to be here. And then he's like, oh, Kuroko's like, I'm sorry I brought the crowd here. And Kageme's like, don't apologize. It's your birthday. The more the merrier, right? I love that. It's so cute. And he's like, yes. Kuroko's like, I just want... My best friend is the biggest extrovert. They love being around people and love that energy. And I'm like the opposite. I'm an introvert. I gain my energy from like being by myself. And she just like gets all this energy from being around people. So her and Kuroko would be the best of friends, I'm sure. And then of course, Kagome and Aomine, Riko is challenging them to like an eat off. And it's absolutely amazing. I love it so much. And then, beyond all doubts, you have Takao eating with Midorima because of course we'd have to ship. And he's like, I can't find my lucky item. And then we find out that Himuro used it in the mushrooms. Oh, Midorima's gonna like kill Himuro. It's great. And Murasaki Bara is like eating them, wanting more. And then we have Akashi with Furihata. Like cheersing. I'm like, if there's one good thing to come out of this entire situation, it is Akashi and Furihata possibly being a thing. That is the one thing with Akashi I will support wholeheartedly. And then Hyuga's being a nerd, and Momoi's just kind of like, well. Well, here's the thing. The funny thing is, Momoi is used to dealing with Aomine, who's kind of a dork. And so Hyuga's being kind of a dork, so she's probably like, you guys could play Dungeons & Dragons together. You know that, right? Like, I feel like that could be a thing. And then they all get together, and they all wish Kuroko, as my dog is like, throw the toy. They all wish Kuroko a happy birthday. And then I love it. I love that he comes back around the counter and everybody is like cheering him on. It's so cute. And then he just smiles. And that's the series. So yeah, I do like that OVA. That OVA feels like a very nice conclusion to the animated series. Still have the movie. Still have the extras and the bloopers. Still have the character songs. So I'll be getting all that ready soon, y'all. We'll be getting all that ready. So I'm going to be doing the season 3 bloopers and extras next week. And then I'm going to be doing the character songs the week after that. And then we'll have the movie. And then once the movie's over, around the time the movie starts, I'll be doing simultaneously all of the audio dramas, all the extras for the rest of the series, as well as the manga reaction simultaneously. So it's going to be a summer of Kuroko, and I'm freaking excited. So who knows? maybe in the manga readings, my views of Akashi will change. We'll see. We'll see. But I'm so glad Seirin won. I really wanted them to win. I'm so glad they did. They needed to win for this series. And I'm glad they did. And I'm glad that the series leaves things very open-ended, being like, well, here's what could happen in the future. And I'm excited for the movie. I know nothing about the movie, which is great. I've wanted to know nothing. So I'm really excited to get to it and to find out what happens. So, but yeah. In the meantime, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Y'all. Here's my thing. Here's my thing about the comments about Akashi, because I know some of you are writing novels. I don't expect everyone to like the same characters that I do, and I'm sure there's some characters that I like. I'm sure there's some people that don't like Kagami, and they're like, I don't like him at all. He's bland or whatever, but I love him. And that's fine. We can agree to disagree. My whole thing is I like hearing people's opinions, and I like seeing them, and I can respect opinions. The only thing that kind of grinds my gears is when people are like, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. And I'm like, dude, it's a fictional character. We can all be right. We can like characters and we can dislike characters. It's totally cool. So I'm excited to read comments. A little bit trepidatious. So I may wait until after the movie to read comments just to be careful so I don't get any movie spoilers. But please no movie or manga spoilers if you're going to comment on this episode with Akashi. But it's cool if you love him. It's cool if you like him. He's just not for me. But maybe reading the manga, I'll turn over a new leaf. We'll see. We'll see. But I love this series so much, and I'm lucky and glad that we're not saying goodbye to it yet. So this is all for the anime. Now I can go back and rewatch the anime. I just started season 2 in the English dub, so I can go back and rewatch it in the English dub now, which I'm really excited about. But yeah. Oh my god, I nearly forgot the end cards and the end credit scenes. I got Whiteboard Coon cleaned off and put away, and I was like, I didn't talk about the end cards or the end credits. So, we need to talk about that real quick before we sign off. So the end credits for this one, there wasn't really end credits for the OVA, but the end credits for the episodes, we see Hanamiya's team. We see them. I always liked the silver-haired one with the bubble gum. I thought they were funny. Like, they just look like a bunch of delinquents. And Hanamiya's just, like, skirking around like Chi-Rong, just leading them, like the Green Lantern himself. It's so funny. They just seem like a group of like-minded individuals, and they just hang out with Hanamiya and tolerate him because whatever. So we see them, Kurosaki. And then I really like this one of the Rakuten players. It looks like they're at a hot spring at an onsen. Akashi probably, got the reservations. I like Nobuya's eating all the food. Hayama. Chihiro looks like he's just hanging out, watching Akashi, being his keeper. My favorite, though, is Mabuchi. I love Mabuchi with the fan, just like, oh my gosh, guys, let me tell you about this guy I met. just looks like he's just going on and on about, like, someone that they're dating. And I was like, yes, Mabuchi. Tell them all the tea. I love Mabuchi, and I love that in credit scene a lot. And then the last one is Seirin. I like that they were trying to, like, in the bushes, like, I guess surprise them, because there's, like, Furihata's standing there with the yellow shirt on, but there's the one first year that's standing there, like, with Kagami, and then number 2, like, ruined the surprise, right? I like Kuroko and Hyuga are like, really? And Kogane's like, yay! And then Riko's back there by the tree. It's really funny, but poor Kagami, that's why he's scared of number 2, right? Poor Kagami. And then we have the end cards. The first end card being Akashi and Chihiro. Some people were asking, they're like, do you think that Nijimura or Mayuzumi was Akashi's keeper? And I would say, obviously, Chihiro. I never really saw Nijimura as Akashi's keeper. He seemed more like he was on equal playing fields with him. I feel like he was the keeper of all the Generation of Miracles, not just Akashi. But Mayuzumi is clearly just Akashi's keeper. Clearly. And then the next one I really like, it's the idea of Akashi facing by himself the duo of Kagami and Kuroko and the power of teamwork. I guess I like thematically that obviously basketball is a sport that you have to play with 5 people, but I like that normally working with others in anime can be seen as, like, I've seen protagonists, Attack on Titan, talk about how working with others can be a negative thing. And here they're like, no, in this sports anime, it is very essential that you all work together. And so I like that it's celebrated here. And Akashi like is pit in between the two of them. It's great. And then of course, because it's the last episode, we see all the photographs of all of them like spread out. I like the Kisei's team. We have the yellow and blue. You have Rakuten. You have Seirin in the middle. You even have there's Yosen as well as Ogiwara's in the corner there. And there is To'o and Shutoku, and they're all in the colors of the Generation Miracles. But then out to the side, you have Haizaki, and is that Nijimura with his back turned? Is that the case? I think so. I think that's the case. I love that. And then the final one from the OVA is, I love that Kagami got in on the, like you have Kuroko and Aomine doing the fist bump and Kagami's like, don't forget the boyfriend. Like just like the boyfriend like sneaks in here. I love that Kagami is just like, I'm not gonna let you two just have this fist bump by yourselves. That's so funny. And then Momoy with the basketball and then them all there. That's so good. Gotta bring it here. So yeah, anyway, Huckleberry wants me to play with this toy, and it's been by my feet the whole time. So, in any case, I really like the end cards. I thought those were great, and the end credits are wonderful too, but I've heard there's one for the movie, and I'm really excited. So yeah, I am so excited. We have so many extras for Kuroko, but bring it on. Bring on the songs, bring on the audio dramas, bring on the manga, bring on the specials, and bring on the movie. So there's also like 10th anniversary stuff, light novels. We've got a summer of Kuroko, y'all, and I'm pretty excited about it. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Kuroko's basketball.